the recreational use law really doesn't have any great impact at all on your workplace. It's not now that people can go smoke at lunch or they can come in high. And so here's the way it's going to work. Not much has changed really at all. Applicant comes in and says, I'm not going to pass your test, I have a compassionate use card. Well, that doesn't mean they get to work for you. That means now you have to switch over to a reasonable accommodation discussion with this applicant, saying, can you get your doctor to get you a prescription for some other pain regulation medication? And if so, then we will be able to accommodate you and let you work here. But we're going to randomly test you, which we can't normally do, because you said you smoke marijuana. So we've had one guy actually do that. Everybody else just sort of disappeared, as we expected. But you can't just reject them because they have the card or they say they smoke marijuana recreationally. You're going to have to do the interactive dialogue now if they need it for pain medication. If you catch someone and then they pull out the card, your employee, well, I have a card. We had a security guard down at a processing plant, and he was the night security guard at 7 a.m. His shack is filled with smoke. It reeks, and the other guard walks up and sees it, goes and gets HR, and they come walking up, and this guy stumbles out, glassy-eyed, sweaty, and holds up his card like, this is my Krypton shield. And so he gets fired because he's smoking on the job, and the card doesn't protect him. And so if you get someone like that, and you say, well, you can't smoke here, we already caught you, you're out, fired. If they come to you and say, I have this card now, you can say, okay, you cannot work here unless you can get a different pain regimen, and we're going to put you on what we call the last chance agreement. And then be very careful with your testing lab about how they're testing, because the standard is, are they under the influence of marijuana in your workplace? Well, the testing labs, which is a good thing for you, have a minimum standard for what is a positive result. It's either 50 nano whatevers or 20 nanos. And so you should check with your lab and see which standard they're using. I prefer 50 because it's a bigger tolerance. If they're over 50, they probably are impaired. If they're over 20, it's a closer call. But you've got to talk to your testing lab and see what they're using so you know whether it's, because if the employee says, well, it's a contact high, which is the usual excuse, that's not going to fly if they're over 50, for sure. 20, probably not either. So find out what they're doing.
John was mentioning the prescription cards, and the new law says recreational use is okay. And one of the things the new law said is, you do, as an employer, you do not have to tolerate recreational use of marijuana. You do not have to change your policies. You do not have to accommodate recreational use. And it's still an illegal drug under federal law. And that's the key thing. Right.
That's your drawback, your fallback every time.
Because if you're saying we will not allow any illegal drugs, and by the way, marijuana is illegal under federal law, that's a big issue. And I think that you can preempt a lot of drama if, when you're recruiting, when you put out a job ad on Craigslist or Glassdoor, wherever it is, if you say, we are a drug-free workplace, parentheses, we prohibit marijuana use, or we do screen for marijuana, it's still illegal under federal law, some language that will help people screen themselves out and not apply if you care. On the other hand, I have some clients where they have a very young workforce, and they're going, well, if we tested everybody or we said no marijuana, we'd lose everybody. And but they don't have any safety-sensitive issues, so they kind of approach it with a little less stringent approach. But for a lot of folks, the important thing really is to understand it's still an illegal drug under federal law. You do not have to allow illegal drug use. You do not have to allow people to have illegal drugs in their system when they work for you. And the recreational use does not give people any more rights to smoke related to work than they had before.
One other issue, you still have the reasonable suspicion testing. They come in with white powder under their nose and there's no donuts around, you reasonable suspicion. Or they smell like marijuana. That's still fine. You may want to get your supervisors have a little training on what constitutes reasonable suspicion, because that's sometimes where the challenge is. You didn't really have reasonable suspicion, you just thought maybe I was high, or you heard that I smoke sometimes on the weekend, so Monday you tested me. That might not be enough.